Yeah. We have with us Bridget Major, who is the president of SDN. In fact, she's the brainchild to connect designers across the globe, and we are really grateful to her. Uh, Without which, I mean, for the last few years, the kind of knowledge and enrichment that I have personally gained from being a part of the Service Design Network, it wouldn't have been possible without her efforts. We also have with us our special guests from ROI Institute, Patty Phillips, Homzad Mistry, Andy Vance. So Patty and Homzad will be uh, showing us and introducing us to ROI methodology framework, a proven framework which will give us insights on how we can build a better business case for design. Bridget, it would be great if you could share as to why this topic is of utmost importance to designers across the globe, and especially today in the context of COVID. It would be great to know if you can help us understand the importance and the relevance of this topic. And then I would request our speakers to you know the anticipation that has been building up for the last few weeks. So we are all excited to know more about how we can benefit as designers with the approach that you guys have mastered over the years. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the Indian chapter to organize all this. And thanks for so many people to joining in. Now, okay. So I'm president of the Global Service Design Network, and we are an organization that is a non-profit organization driven by volunteers all over the world. And we have a very small headquarter in Cologne in Germany, where we produce Touchpoint, the magazine for service design, where we organize events and conferences. We have an academy, we have the accreditation program, so many interesting things. If you have not yet seen it, you might want to visit servicedesignetwork.org. Our mission is to make service design the new normal. When I started in 1995 as a professor for service design, there was no service design. Today it's everywhere, and the Service Design Network wants to make it even bigger. We want that there is no public and no private service in the world designed without using service design, to make it human-centered, to make it useful, usable, and fun to use, desirable. I have brought the little definition that we are using. We choreograph processes, technologies, and interactions within complex systems in order to co-create value for relevant stakeholders. And there we have a key word, it is value. So we want to create value for relevant stakeholders, and that means to co-create value, we have to measure. We have to measure the impact that our work brings to the organizations that we are working for and for the end users. Service Design Network for the last decade has really put a focus on measuring impact, because that helps us to communicate, it helps us to sell service design to organizations. They want to know what's in it for me. So we have created the Service Design Award 6 years ago. We only recognize projects that have been implemented and where the success has been measured. So that is a way, that we really try to get data on the impact of service design that helps us to talk about the value. We have also created a couple of impact reports, which you can download for free on the website of the Service Design Network, where we try to point out what is the value and the impact service design brings to the public sector, to the health sector, to organizations who have in-house service design labs. And we have created the Service Design Network Academy, where we try to teach many things, among which is the strategic design and measuring of value. And we organize lots of workshops and seminars. So to today we want to focus on the ROI, which is a very important key data to make a business case for service design. And we are super happy to welcome again Patty P. Phillips from the ROI Institute, and Hormas Mistry, founder and CEO of Sarosh Consulting and CEO of the ROI Institute in India. So as we have already said, we are super curious to hear what we can learn from you. And I would just give you the stage.
Okay, thank you very much. So Hormaz, I shall share the slides.
Sure.
As if I know exactly what I'm doing here. So, okay, so did it work? So everyone see?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, nice. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bridget, for that lovely introduction of us and for giving us insights into the service design network and what we do. Today, Patty and I will talk about making a business case for service design. Bridget, like she rightly said, it's about creating value for our customers with the design projects that we do. And with that idea, we've set out the objectives for today. Sorry. Right. We've set out the objectives for today where we want to work with you and help you identify what the 5 levels of outcome data are required to showcase and deliver impact and ROI with the design projects that we do. We want to identify the data needed by executives along with their expectations from a service design project. We want to forecast and present the impact and ROI and the intangibles in a real compelling way so that the executives, when they review it, they clearly understand what it is that we're talking to them about and what's the return that they can expect from the project. And finally, we want to help plan the next steps to ensure maximum business value. Request you to stay with us until the end of the session, and we would give you access to a free tools as well. So stay with us till the end, and you will get to see free tools that we are providing to you. Before we go any further, I would like to understand from each and every one of you, what is the purpose of service design? If you could share with us your idea, your thoughts about the purpose of service design in the chat box, we would love to hear that. Excellent, thank you, Andy. Andy has already shared the slide deck with you in the chat. So if you would like to make notes as we go through the presentation, you could download that slide deck right away and keep making notes as well. All right, so we're waiting to hear what your thoughts are about the purpose of service design. Mani says it's to create friction-free experiences for people. Vidya says it's thinking of the entire ecosystem rather than just a touch point, having a holistic view. So Vidya, could you unmute yourself and tell us a little more about what you mean by creating a holistic view?
Today, when we are talking about any service product that we are offering, it is just not internally within the organization, but there is a huge partner ecosystem that we are dependent on,
right,
for the success of that particular project, program, product, whatever is it that we want to call. And it's a team effort across different organizations put together. So it's just not what we are talking about, the touch points, which is basically a web, a physical or a digital way by which customers can connect with the organization, but it's the entire ecosystem. Because if my partner doesn't provide the service which I promise, then there is a problem. Right. So that's why we are talking about the ecosystem.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Vidya. Okay. And I notice a lot of, for a lot of participants that we have on this session today, your name is showing up as Vidya Priya Rao. I would request you to change your name so that we know who's providing the responses in the chat. Else all the responses are right now, a lot of the responses are right now getting tagged to Vidya Priya Rao. Excellent. Yes, so we have some wonderful responses coming in from a lot of you.
I like Manu's. It's making the experience of getting things done smooth, comfortable, and delightful. Right? They never know. They never know they're getting the work done. It's just all happening. So, go ahead, Hermaz. Sorry.
Yes. No, perfect. Thank you, Patty, for adding that as well. Now, when we look at service design, Service Design Network says that it's a service design uses a holistic and highly collaborative approach to generate value for both service user and the service provider throughout the services life cycle. And this is exactly what Bridget said right at the beginning as well, right? That it is about generating and creating value for our customers, right, throughout the services life cycle. And while we work with different service design projects, different innovative projects, right? What we are trying to do is we're trying to have the solution being delivered as early as possible, but not just any solution that provides the right kind of value to our customers. The sooner we do that, the sooner we get successful business outcomes, and it helps avoid what we call as the valley of death, where the research cost, the implementation cost just keeps increasing the loss for the project. The profit comes once the product launch happens and it actually starts delivering some value. So the sooner we do that, the better it becomes for our customers and for the project in itself. And the same thing was also talked about. Sorry, I skipped over a slide, right? Now, when we're talking about projects, it's the same thing when we talk about different functional areas, whether it's talent management, it's technology, it's human resources, or whether it's an innovation project. It's a project that's where we're looking at compliance, or we're looking at marketing and advertising. In any functional area of a business for an organization, we can create a project. We can use service design principles. We can use a service design thought process to implement projects and bring out value for our customers. The Business Value of Design report from McKinsey, which was published in 2018, also says that design-focused organizations tend to generate greater value than the benchmark. And this is one of the core reasons why we have a lot of organizations focusing on innovative ideas, innovative projects across different functional areas. They want to make sure that they are able to generate better revenues, because it's the new ideas, the new thoughts, the new processes, when they get implemented, helps generate a larger revenue for the organization. Yet, when we look at today's environment, even for creating a better business case, for getting more investments in our innovation and design projects, we need to provide a better business case. Leaders are constantly asking us why investments need to be made into various different kinds of projects. Why do you think that is happening? Why do we still need to make business cases and showcase the need for investments in innovation and design? Feel free to share your thoughts with us in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and share your thoughts as well.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. So my question here is, even though there have been studies that say that, like the McKinsey report, right, says that organizations that tend to focus on design and innovative projects generate more revenue. Yet when we talk about innovation projects, you have leaders, business leaders asking for a business case. They're asking why that investment needs to be made in that particular project. So why do you think leaders are asking for a business case for investing in innovation and design?
Okay, thanks. That helps me. So I will, yeah, in the interest of time, I'll rather voice over than type things.
Sure.
Easier so that people can. Okay,
Sure.
my name is, let me, quick introduction. My name is Uday, UKP for short. I'm part of the Design It leadership team. Been a practicing designer for the last 25 years. I built and sold my companies, but yeah, I came back to design because that's what that's the only thing I know to do. So my current day job, I keep telling people that I'm lucky to be in the right place and right time. So we are part of Wipro, and that gives us a lot of ringside view and sometimes a seat at the table on very strategic transformation projects of immense scale, scope, and outcomes. My thesis, which I hope to publish very soon, uh, after having spent 4 years with Design It, is simply that everybody gets the surface, tacit knowledge of understanding of what service design is simply, super. But I think top three things that come to my mind. Uh, Sequestering all the buzzwords, innovation and disruption and all of that. Fundamental thing is there is no alignment between the ask versus task from the executive stakeholders to the practitioners. It's like the hammer and nail. I've seen this unfold a zillion times, and then I think, and we designers, practitioners are also at fault because we don't tell the story unsalted, of course, but in a way that resonates with the person or the organization that is your ideal customer, right?
Right.
That is number one. We guys are at fault, and I have no qualms in claiming that. I think it is not about what we say. It is not about the research. It is not about what we say, but it is about how we say. The first cracks appear there, and then from there it becomes like a multi-tenanted tentacled hydra. Number two, not everything can be looked upon from the lens of service design. Now, my hypothesis, my own corollary to that is, it's product management 101, right? Every product to be sold has to be servicized, and every service has to be productized. I keep asking people, you have a bank account, are you dealing with banking products or banking services? 11 out of 10 times people don't get the answer right. So I think first principles are missing, and the third one is always the fact that today everybody are being forced to basically adopt or die. Most of the guys who want to transform their services or processes or anything in that continuum are not doing it as a pull, but it's a push, right? Adopt or die. At that point in time, multiple levers come into play, right? Budget, timelines, signaling and demonstrating success to the C-suite, and everything needs to happen yesterday. So in that bargain, we also bend rules, we also twist rules. We have budgets, we have P&L. If you're doing it for profit, of course, we're all part of organizations that actually have bills to pay, bread and sometimes butter to eat.
True.
So I think one is this whole misconception of why service design, and why service design for you at your context needs to be recasted. And if you don't get that clarity, the rest of the things don't come in play. Many projects die at that at stage itself, and then it is nightmare. We all know it. Number two, as practitioners, we need to, I may sound like an old book, but I think we need to socialize, we need to evangelize, and we need to basically help them look at it from our lens, at least from a surface level. If they don't resonate to that, no amount of fancy presentations or research is going to get you a service design project. Number three, the market. I'm speaking for India, so I'm lucky to be part of an organization. We are spread across 16 cities across the globe, but I think more so in India. I keep telling people that India is like a real world social lab, and there is no dearth of service design interventions that we can't implement and make changes. I think there is a huge disconnect in the number of service design practitioners in the market. So there's a huge supply demand issue, right?
Right.
So let me pause because I know otherwise I'll keep going on and on. But I thought this is why the business case for investing in innovation and design fails, not because your demand side is not aware of what service design can do, but we are not able to fortify that story and translate that into a statement of work and a PO and essentially money in the bank, and demonstrate value for the customer. That's where the huge delta is. So I'll pause.
Excellent thoughts. Thank you. Uday, about those. Okay. We have a few responses in the chat as well. We're saying people are unaware of what design actually involves and its impact. We have people, Sangeeta said, because old systems are failing. Rajesh said, because there's resistance to change and adopting new methodologies and processes. Arthur said, service design results are still difficult to quantify by traditionally trained managers. Mani says also designers lack the business language to sufficiently make the business case. Sharon says, because not all design innovations yield a feasible ROI. Supriya says, they are trained in a manner that it's easy to understand business case than just value. Excellent thoughts, right? And all very valid points, if we say so. Right? And the reason why we see that better business cases are required is because of all the reasons that you guys have talked about so far. Okay? The ones that they talked to you guys have put those responses in chat. Okay? It's needed because there are budget constraints and leaders want to see what's the output, what's the value that that particular project is going to bring. Okay? They have that appetite for knowing, understanding monetary value and taking decisions based on those monetary values. Okay? They want to know what the project costs are, and they want to base their decisions on what evidence are we providing, what fact-based thinking are we providing in terms of the project to them. Our sponsors are demanding, their donors could be demanding, they're worried about failures in different projects. So for different reasons, we need to make a better business case and showcase it to our stakeholders.
Very good. Thank you, Harmaz, for that introduction. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. You know, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. In our work at ROI Institute, we've been around for a number of decades, and we have had the opportunity to work in organizations worldwide. And what we found through our research is design matters most. How we design the products and services that organizations deliver, whether it's internal products and services delivered to employees or those products and services delivered to the external customer. Either way, design matters because it's all about the experience our employees have or the experience our customers have. That's what keeps them coming back. That's what keeps employees engaged and retained, and what ensures that they are producing improvement in measures of output, quality, cost, time, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, work habits, and innovation. So when we think about making the business case for design, we consider this value chain that occurs as we invest in any product or service or program or initiative. There's a value chain that occurs. And because of this value chain, we can start delivering value sooner than later, because what we want to avoid, as Harmaz pointed out, is a fall into that valley of death. That valley of death that says the organization spent a lot of money and got nothing from it. That's what valley of death does. So we start our value chain with the investment. Now, inputs, what we call level 0 data. So again, this is our framework of data. It's the chain of value that occurs as we invest in programs, projects, and initiatives. And all of the levels represent some measure of value that is important to some stakeholder, because different stakeholders define value differently, as you all know. Level 0 does not represent value. Level 0 represents the investment we're making in the solution, in the design. So that's your research and development, right? That's the research. What is happening or not happening that needs to change? What are the potential solutions? How many people are involved? How many stores we're going to pilot this process in? So it's all about the inputs. That's your investment. Value begins with that investment. But as we roll out the investment, we start to see outcomes that represent value from multiple perspectives. So we look at reaction data. Level 1, reaction data. This is what the people involved in the program or the project, this is how they perceive it. So it is their reaction to the program or the project or the solution. Their perceived value of it. Yes, this is important to me. Yes, this service resonates with me, or this program resonates with me. The way I'm being treated is important to how I feel about this organization. So it's all about the perception, so perceived value. It's relevant, it's important, it's appropriate. I intend to do something with it. I intend to come back to the store, or I intend to apply what I now know. So it's that initial reaction to whatever the product, service, innovation is. And then there's a learning component. Everything we do has a learning component. It's about what people know so that they can do what we want them to do. So this could be knowledge, skill, information, insight. It could be instructions that you give them. It could be directions. It could be policies, procedures, guidelines. So learning results or learning outcomes tell us people know what they need to know so they can do what we want them to do. And that knowledge, again, can be skill, knowledge, capacity, competencies. It can be confidence. They feel confident to engage in a process or confident to do their job. It can also be connections. You know, as you all pointed out, it's a collaborative process. Service design is a collaborative process. Well, who are they meeting as they're collaborating on processes that they can then leverage in the future? So there's always a learning component. So again, we invest in whatever the research is. We invest in the design, the makeup of the design, or the prototype. We're spending money here, we're making an investment, but as we roll it out, we want to see a positive reaction to the product, the service, the innovation. And we want to ensure that people know whatever it is they need to know to do what we want them to do. And then we want to make sure they're doing it. People are engaging the way you want them to engage. You've designed this experience. Are people doing what you want them to do? Are they behaving the way you want them to behave? Are they following the process? Are they taking the actions? Are they engaging with customers the way we hope they would? That's what we call level 3 application data. Okay, that's important. And in fact, it's what happens here at level 3 that is our best predictor of whether or not we get a payoff in terms of business impact and ROI. So application data, what people are doing, how we're measuring changes in behaviors, actions, processes. The results here are critical if we want to see impact and ROI. Impact data, business impact data, answer the so what question. Okay, so what? Employees are doing what we want them to do, or customers are doing what we want them to do. So what? How much improvement are we seeing in measures of output, quality, cost, time, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, work habits, and innovation? And how much of that improvement is due to our solution and not someone else's? That's our step to isolate the effects of the program. We have to do it. Did the output of our design process, whether it's a product, a service, whatever the innovation is, did the output of our product or service cause the improvement in whatever the measures are, the measures that matter? This is key. And this is what we're seeing more and more executives and funders of projects asking for. What's the so what of it all? People are changing behaviors, they're following the process, they're engaged. So what? How much improvement are we seeing in the measures that matter to the organization, and how much of that is due to our solution and not something else? And then ROI. ROI tells us in one metric, or the benefits, the impact of our solution outweighing the cost of investing in the solution. So ROI is comparing the impact back up to level 0, the investment. And the end result is a measure, a metric, a single metric that tells us whether or not the investment in our design process actually paid off. Now, when we work with ROI, there are any number of measures of economic value add. So organizations have a variety of different measures they use at a macro level. So like return on equity, ROE, that's a big measure for publicly traded organizations. They look at net income compared to shareholder value. It's not suitable for what we're doing. It's not suitable for looking at the value of a design process and the output of a particular project. But at a macro level for publicly held organizations, it's an important metric. There's also return on assets, ROA, that's important. There's internal rate of return, that's important. They're all important. So we can give you a long list of those measures. But the two that work with the types of programs and projects that we're involved in and that work with any other type of program and project are the BCR, the benefit cost ratio, and the ROI. The benefit cost ratio is the output of cost benefit analysis. It's a classic economic theory that is grounded in welfare economics and public finance. So if you are designing for a nonprofit or an NGO, a lot of times that NGO will use the benefit cost ratio just because it comes from that environment, comes from that discipline. ROI comes from business and finance. The two are related, it's just the output is different and the formulas are slightly different. So we have our benefit cost ratio and our ROI. To get there, all we have to do is convert the benefits of our project to money and compare to the cost of that project. So you're comparing those the improvement in the impact measures, level 4, converting those to money after we isolate the effects of the program or the project on improvement in the measures. And then we look at the cost of the solution. And these costs will include all the research and the work that you did through your design process to get to whatever the solution is. So it's our fully loaded cost. Benefits are made up of either profit, cost savings, or cost avoidance. So let's say you've implemented a new process, you've created a new solution, and as a result of implementing that new process to better engage customers, you've increased sales. It's not the sales that we put in the numerator, it's the profit on the sales, because that's the value add. So your numerator is looking at the value added back to the organization or whoever's investing in the process, the design solution. So we look at profit. If it's sales, we typically use gross profit. So you just remove cost of goods sold. We may also look at cost savings. So much of the work that we do is about reducing cost. So we're reducing the cost of errors, reducing the cost of rejects, reducing the cost of safety violations. All of those measures can be affected by design. So we look at cost savings. We may also be looking at cost avoidance. Maybe we're redesigning how the organization works together. You know, culture change is a big conversation here in the US, as well as other organizations in other countries, and such as all of your countries. You know, we look at culture change. Nothing is more important when looking at the culture of an organization to really look at it in the context of design. And when we're changing the culture, we want to shift the culture to something else, that's where design comes in. Critical important to culture change. But a lot of times we're changing culture, maybe not to increase sales, maybe not to reduce cost, but maybe it's to avoid something in the future. So it could be avoiding bad press, or it could be avoiding departures of our employees. So maybe our organization doesn't have high turnover, but we want to make sure we keep it that way. There we're looking at cost avoidance. So cost avoidance is where we're trying to avoid some costs. So again, your numerator is going to be made up of either profit based on sales generated, cost savings, or cost avoidance. And this numerator is always considering the annual change in performance, because your BCR, benefit cost ratio, and your ROI represent an annual rate of return. So we look at the annual benefits converted to either profit, cost savings, cost avoidance, and compare it to the cost. Now, ROI, we're using the same data. The difference is in your numerator, we take benefits minus the cost. So you're looking at the net benefits. Classic formula for ROI is earnings compared to investment. Well, as I mentioned earlier, much of the work that we do is not about driving sales. We're not looking at earnings. We're looking at cost savings, cost avoidance. So in doing so, we want to remove the cost of generating those benefits. We're looking at the net benefits compared to cost, and then just multiply it by 100, because ROI is reported as a percentage. Okay, so those are the two measures that we use at level 5 ROI. So when we're making that business case, we just want to remember that the business case begins with that chain of value. There's value important to all stakeholders. We may invest in a program or a project or initiative or a solution in some way. The first measure of value is we want to make sure people are bought in to whatever this new process is. It's relevant to them. They perceive it as value. They intend to follow the process. We want to make sure that they know what they need to know to do what we want them to do. So first, we make sure that the participants or the people involved in the project are bought in and they know what they need to know. And then they go out and do it. They apply what they now know. They follow the process. They change their behaviors. They implement the strategy. Whatever that process is, they're doing it. And as a consequence of their doing it, we're seeing improvement in measures of output quality, cost, time, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, work habits, and innovation. And we know that improvement is due to our program because we take a step to isolate the effects of the program. And then all we have to do from there is convert measures to money, bring in the cost, calculate the ROI, and then we report that as either a benefit cost ratio, depending on what your preference is for the organization, or the ROI percentage, the return on investment. So let's have some fun real quick. This is a session around making the business case. ROI is an important part of that business case. ROI requires math, so we do have math problems here. So let's test it. Let's see what we can do with it. So let's assume we implement an initiative and we found that as a result of that initiative, we saved the organization $750,000 over the course of the year. The process only cost us $425,000. So this solution that we're implementing only costs $425,000. It saved $750,000, cost $425,000. What is the BCR and what is the ROI? And Andy, if you want to pop up the poll, let them jot down the formula real quick. And then Andy's going to pop the poll up and let you pick the right answer. So we want the BCR and the ROI. All right, it looks like we have 2 in. 2 out of our 44 have now responded. Folks, this is where we should have music playing. All right. So 750,000 is the benefits, 425 is the cost. All right, how are we doing here? All right, we'll give them just another minute. I'm not sure we told them to bring calculators to this event. Hormaz, that may be a good idea for next time. Thank you, Andy.
Yes.
So benefit 750, cost 425. Andy's popping the input to the formula in quickly. I mean, in the chat. Okay, Bear, are you saying because you're on the phones, you can't do the poll? Is that what it is? All right, if you can't do the poll, if you can pop it in the chat and let's see what we can do. Not sure what you can do with the phone. Okay, good on you 8 folks who are responding. Ah, thank you. Yes, calculators are on the phone. That's a good point. Everyone has a calculator. All right, thank you. Vitaly, BCR 1.76. Okay, what would that make the ROI? Looking at Vitaly. All right, very good. I think we'll go ahead and release that. Andy, let's see what we did. All right, very good. So those who responded in the poll, right on, 100% correct. And those in the chat, you're close. All right, so here's the result. I say as if it's going to change. There we go. All right, so here's the result. So your benefit cost ratio is 1.76. So that benefit cost ratio is telling us for every $1 we invest in a design project, in a program or project, for every $1 we invest, we get $1.76 back in gross benefits. And then the ROI is the net. Now, someone asked what this 100 is all about. That's just getting you to the percentage. ROI reports a percentage return. So what the ROI is telling us is for every $1 we invest, we get that dollar back plus an additional 76 cents. So it's a 76% return on investment. So again, the two measures are similar, but the output is different. And we want to know that difference because sometimes there's confusion. We'll sometimes see someone take the 1.76 and multiply that times 100 and report 176% as a return on investment, but that would be incorrect. You've just overstated the return. Return on investment is reporting what the leftovers are, how much we get over and beyond the investment. Does that make sense to everyone? We're talking about ROI. Now, the other measures are important because remember, there's that value chain that occurs. And as we're implementing our process, our new program, our new project, as we're implementing, we're collecting data that tell us there's value in the program. It's dependent, the value is defined by the stakeholder. Like, is that really meaningful? But that's why when we look at those lower levels of data, we want to make sure we're asking good questions and taking good measures because they can be predictive of the higher levels. So as you're implementing your program, process, or initiative, we want to collect those data and ultimately report that ROI, which is the most compelling part of the business case for those people making the investment. Now, a question that often comes up is, well, what makes a good ROI? Is 76% good? And it depends. We're only as good as that to which we compare. So when we're thinking about the results at whatever level of evaluation, and particularly that ROI, when we're thinking about results, we want to set objectives, set targets. And that target ROI represents the minimally acceptable ROI. It is not the forecast. We're going to talk about forecast in just a moment. It's not about forecast. It's like, what is minimally acceptable? And then the question is often asked, well, how do you determine that? So these are some things to think about as you're setting a target ROI for one of your initiatives. What kind of return on investment do you want to get? What would be minimally acceptable? What would be the target rate or the hurdle rate that tells us, okay, this was good? And so we look at possibly setting that ROI value at the same rate of return as that of other investments in the organization. So when organizations invest in equipment or land or buildings, they have a set hurdle rate. They have a return on that investment. They get a return on investment, sometimes about 15%. So you could set your target ROI at the same level as the return on investment set for other capital expenditures, other investments an organization is making, or you can raise the hurdle rate. And we often use 25% as the target. And the reason is that we know if we can get the right people involved in the right project at the right time, and there's a reason for the project, and that project works, that we can see great returns on investments because we've motivated people to do something different, whatever that is. So whatever that service delivery process is, people have to do something different to create that experience for employees and customers. If we can get people to do that, we can have really high ROIs. So we tend to have 25% as the minimally acceptable for many of our projects. That also communicates. It's not just that over the past 3-4 decades that we've been doing this. This 25% is about what we see. But it's also when you raise the hurdle rate just above what the organization is getting for other investments, you're communicating to those people funding the project that, you know what, we can beat this because what we're doing is so important. It will move the needle on the measures enough that we can not only cover the cost of the project, but we can exceed those costs by a greater margin than we're exceeding when we invest in building our equipment, because you're investing in people and processes. You can also use break even. So as I mentioned, service design is used in NGOs, like you all know, and a lot of the NGOs and nonprofits with whom we work set at a break even. So this would be 0% would be a one-to-one BCR. That's just saying you're getting your money back. You've implemented the process, it's working, and it's working enough to get your money back. You're not gaining anything. You're not increasing profit or reducing cost or avoiding costs by a greater margin than the actual investment level, but you are getting the money back. And much of the time, we set it based on client expectation. And this comes from the conversations we have when we're aligning our programs and projects to the business. Someone commented earlier when Hermaz introduced the reason why we need this business case, a better business case for design, someone commented that there's a misalignment. We're not always aligned to what the organization needs or aligned to what the executives needs. So in this alignment conversation, this is where we often set that expectation. We have to manage it. Sometimes our clients have much higher expectation than we can deliver, but typically, if you have a good alignment conversation with that client and those partners and really understand what they're trying to accomplish, we can set that target ROI there. So those are the formulas. Okay, now in terms of time value of money, okay, the cost of money is really important. Time value of money, one of our standards is for the shorter term initiatives, those initiatives that we can implement within 3-4 months. For example, we look at first year benefits only. So time is that 1 year. So value of money is what it is at that time. There may be some initiatives where they're big change initiatives and you can have those recurring benefits in the future. If that's the case, then we might assume benefits in the future. There we might consider time value of money. Same with the investment level. You may invest in an initiative in year 1, but get nothing from it, and see benefits in years 2 and 3, but then you have to account for time value of money in your denominator as well, because you could have invested somewhere else and gotten benefit, whereas you didn't get any benefit in the first year there. So great comment there about cost of money. We tend to look at that first year payoff only. And the reason is typically executives investing in design work want a more immediate outcome. They don't want to wait 5 years to see it happen, and because otherwise they're going to move on to something else. So it's almost as if your project, fell through into the valley of death because you didn't have time to show benefit. We got to get things done. And that's why we have all these different measures. ROI is one measure. It's an important measure. It's the most compelling measure that you can use to tell your story, but it's only one. We're going to report that full chain of impact. Here's what people think. Here's what they know. Here's what they're doing. And as a consequence, these measures are improving. And sometimes those impact measures may not be the ultimate measure you're trying to improve, but it's a leading indicator that we can then convert to money. Okay, because we just keep seeing more and more projects fall by the wayside. And organizations, while yes, there's evidence that those organizations investing in design are generating greater revenue, there are those organizations who are starting to cut back on these investments because they're not seeing the results they had hoped to see, or they're not seeing them soon enough. So that's ROI and our framework of data. So in the end, what we're reporting is this chain of value. It's that value chain that occurs as we invest in programs, projects, and initiatives. So we invest that money, that's our inputs. And as we roll it out, people are telling us this is great, bought in, is important to me. I know what I need to know. Right? I've got the information, the insight, I understand the process, I understand my role in it, I know what I need to know, and I'm doing what I need to do. And as a consequence, we're seeing improvement in measures of output, quality, cost, time, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, work habits, innovation. And we know that improvement in those measures is due to our project because we take a step to isolate the effects of the program. carving out how much is due to what we're contributing to our project and giving credit for the other solutions. And then all we have to do is convert measures to money, bring in the cost, calculate the ROI, and report the intangible benefits. And the intangible benefits are those additional benefits that come from our solution. They're not in the ROI formula, but they're just as important. So again, looking at value from multiple perspectives. There's a chain of value. It's not just about ROI, it's about all these measures of value. The lower levels, reaction, learning, for example, if we take the right measures, if we ask the right questions, they can help us predict what success is going to look like with application, what success may look like with impact. So we need those data because they're giving us some insight into what the future may hold. The other reason we want these lower levels is sometimes your program or your project, your solution is going to reap a negative ROI. It happens. Design doesn't always work. We spend too much money. We couldn't get the organization engaged. The people who support application didn't. So you're going to have some negative ROIs where these lower levels of data tell us how we can improve that design in the future. So the ROI methodology that we're sharing with you today is as much a process improvement or a design approach as it is a mechanism to demonstrate the value for your programs and projects. Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone good on that? So we've got our 5 levels of data, multiple perspectives or multiple measures of value. We need all of those data. Now the question is, okay, how do you make this work? Well, we begin with our framework, and then we have our process model. You see the process on the screen. Now in your chat real quick, why do we need a process model? Why do we need process models? You all have them. You've got your process models. Why do you need a process model? What do we like about process models? Pop it in your chat. Consistency, yeah, exactly. It's consistency, right? A process model tells us step by step what we're going to do. It also helps us explain step by step what we did when it's done. So when you're reporting that ROI, someone's going to ask you, how did you get there? Process model helps you do that. Okay, so our process begins with starting with why. So why are we doing this in the first place? So here's where alignment comes in. We begin with understanding the needs of the organization. So again, you know better than anyone, design is about solving the big problems, whether they're organization problems, community problems, is about solving the big problems and taking advantage of the big opportunities. That's what we mean by why. Start with why. What is it? And then sorting out through our research, and that research can be very technical. It can be quantitative, qualitative research. We use a lot of analytics to help us sort out what the potential solutions are. We also use qualitative. Ethnography is big in design work. You know that. Phenomenological approaches to research are big in design. So we sort out what is happening or not happening that if we changed it, could help us address the why and what is the best solution for it. And then what are the objectives? We expect success. Objectives are the blueprint for the design. These objectives, expectation for success, are also the measures we take through the evaluation. Once we roll out the solution, we start collecting data. As it starts to roll out, as you're pilot testing a new solution, a new design, a new process, we collect data to see, are people buying into it? Do they intend to carry on with it? Do people know what they need to know to do what we want them to do? And then once it's fully launched, we're going to follow up to see if people are doing what we want them to do routinely. So are they really following the process that we had hoped? Is the system supporting the implementation of this solution the way we hope? And are the business impact measures improving? In our analysis, we take that step to isolate the effects of the program. And this is where we start having some fun, because when we're piloting programs, so if you've developed a prototype, for example, We can experiment, we can compare what the performance is in the measures of the group involved in the prototype to performance in the measures to a group that's uninvolved. So that's our control group. That's classic. So control group is classic. We have other techniques too, like trend line analysis, mathematical modeling. So again, working with analytics to help us. And then sometimes we just go ask people, what caused this improvement in the measure? That's our estimation process. If you stop your analysis here at step 6, you have a good business case for your program or your project, because you've demonstrated that there is a connection between what you have done, whatever your solution is, and improvement in business measures. And then to get to ROI, we simply convert those measures to money. We have a variety of techniques we use to do that. We can use standard values, historical cost. We can use databases, experts to get to those values. So a variety of ways we can get to the value. Some measures we choose not to convert. Those are our intangibles. We bring in our costs and then calculate the ROI, which you've already done. You see how easy that is. And then we tell that story in a compelling way. We've invested in this process. People bought in. They viewed it as important and relevant. They've acquired the knowledge, skill, and information, and they're doing exactly what we want them to do. And as a result, we're seeing improvement in output, quality, cost, time. And we convert that to money, compare it to the cost of the solution. Here's the positive ROI. And oh, by the way, here are the intangibles. So we're communicating that story in a very compelling way, putting data in there that's important to all stakeholders, but presenting it very logically. But the big piece is here. This last step is all about data optimization. Once we've demonstrated that a new solution is working, we've made the case for that solution, we don't stop with the ROI. We don't stop with the results. We go back and use those data so we can improve it over time. And so we continue to monitor how we're doing. Do people continue to do what we want them to do? Are those measures consistently improving, or have they flatlined? And is there something we can do? Or if we have a negative ROI, what can we do to improve the ROI in the future? So this last step and this first step are probably the two most important steps in the design and the improvement of the design. And then that sixth step in terms of credibility of the results we report, this is probably the most important step in the process. So we have a 12-step process. So we have our framework of data, we have our 12-step process, and another way to view the 12-step process is through this alignment model. Now, one of the tools that you'll be getting at the end of the session here in a few minutes is an application guide, so it explains the process and the different techniques we use. But I wanted to show you this alignment model real quick, because this helps with the conversation. So we have the 12-step process, but then when we look at it in the context of our levels of data, it looks like this. So we have that chain of impact that reports the results, but we also use those levels as the basis for that alignment piece, beginning with the why. So again, step 1 in our process, start with why. Why are we doing what we're doing? It begins with those payoff needs. Payoff needs are the opportunity for the organization to make money, save money, avoid cost, or do some greater good. And then here we define the specific business measures that need to improve. So it could be patient satisfaction, length of stay in a hospital. It could be a measure of customer satisfaction. It could be the number of products sold. So it's very specific about the business measures that need to improve. This part of our research is pretty easy because we can get to it through operations reports, conversations with clients, data, monitoring your data in your systems. So again, here, this is just what is the need of the business. And then the fun begins here, where we really start to sort out what is happening or not happening that if we changed it could help us improve these measures. And then given the different solutions, what is it people need to know to do what we want them to do to improve the measures so we can take advantage of the payoff? And how best do we roll it out? So how are we going to design it so that people know what they need to know to do what we want them to do to improve the business measures to take advantage of the payoff opportunity? And then who needs to be involved in the project itself? So this is our alignment process. beginning that design as you all do with your work, beginning with that opportunity for the organization. It doesn't begin with what needs to change in the organization. It's not about changing culture of the organization. That's not the problem or the opportunity. The question when people come to us, it's like, we need to redesign this entire organization. We need to change the culture. You don't need to change the culture. You need to improve something here at the business level. So the question is, why do you need to change the culture? Why do you need to redesign the service implementation? Why do you want to change the experience customers or employees are having? What's happening at the business level? What measures are telling you that needs to change? And then what do people need to know to change it? And how best can we roll out that change? And then who needs to be involved? And from there, we develop specific measurable objectives. Again, these objectives represent the architectural blueprint of your design. Much of the time when we look at projects, design projects, they focus right here on behavior or process changes. Sometimes they focus, many times it depends on what it is. They focus here on what people need to know. But much of the time with design solutions, they're focused here rather than the impact objectives and the ROI objective. And what we're suggesting is you need objectives along all those levels, because that's going to ensure you've positioned your process and your solution for the success that the organization is hoping for. So we start with our objectives, and then all we have to do from there is roll out your solution and collect data to see if you met your objectives. But the ultimate business case begins here. Why are we doing it in the first place? So Harmaz, you want to add anything to that?
Nobody, you've covered all the points that I had in mind.
All right, any questions or comments? So you've seen this chain of value, the value chain. So when we think about value, it's coming at us from different perspectives, what people think about it, what they know, what they're doing, the impact of what they're doing, and then the monetary value compared to the cost of the ROI, all a compelling story. To get there, to get to that value and create that value through your design, we're working this left side of the V first, ensuring we're clear on why we're doing it. And then we design the solution to address the why. And then we're going to develop these specific measurable objectives that serve as the architectural blueprint. And they also tell us what measures we're going to take when we evaluate it. So it makes the evaluation so much easier. Where people struggle when we're working with them to demonstrate the ROI of a solution, they struggle doing it because they really didn't get clear on the objectives. They have very vague objectives. And one reason is the front end process, which is the crux of design work, right? The front end process was not so clear. They didn't really get to the measures up front. But if we can make these connections between why we're doing what we're doing, how we're going to design it, how we're going to measure success, and what results come from it, if we can make those connections, we have increased the value of our solution. But then also we've made an amazing business case for future rollout. So if you're prototyping, for example, the solution, you've got an incredible business case because you're clear on why, the how, and the what. Okay, Harmaz, you want to take us through a quick exercise on objectives, and then I'm going to show you that pre-programmed forecast, because while going through and making your business case all the way to ROI is good. So if you have the luxury of investing in a program or a project and you want to prototype that solution, test it before you roll it out to the masses, you want to do that ROI study. Take it all the way through the process. That's your business case for future rollout. But sometimes you may want to forecast the ROI before you roll it out, which can at least give investors a glimpse of what that potential success is and hopefully keep them investing until you have a chance to put it out there. So you want to take them through a quick exercise on objectives just for fun, see if they have any questions?
Yes. Yep. Let me do that. Okay. So here's a list of a few objectives, 12 objectives that we have laid out for you. What I'd like you all to do is on a piece of paper, if you have somewhere with you or on your mobile phones, just write the number of the objective and the level for which the objective is written. Let's see how well you can do that. Okay. We have 12 objectives. I want you to make a note of at what level is each of these objectives written. Level 1 is reaction. Sorry, go on.
No, sir, Hermaz, I was just gonna say, since Andy is out there, by the way, Andy, those of you who haven't met Andy Vance is on our team here at ROA Institute. He's in the background helping Hermaz and me. Andy, if you want to pop those levels in the chat, I know Hermaz was about to read them off. So as Hermaz tells them, if you'll pop them in the chat so they'll remember what those levels are. Go ahead, Hermaz, sorry.
No problem, thank you. Right, so level 1 is the reaction level. This is where we are expecting to know what the participants or how the participants will react to that particular project. Okay? Do they find it useful? Do they find it relevant? Is it important for them? Right? Level 2 is your level of learning. What is it that the participants need to know before they are able to apply the project or implement the project at level 3? Level 4 is where we look at the business impact that comes out from the project. And the level 5 is your ROI.
So just grab a piece of paper. If you didn't download the PDF that Andy sent, grab a piece of paper and just see if you've got those levels down. Just write on a piece of paper, and then Hermaz will take you through the answers real quick. And then we're going to take a look at the pre-programmed forecast model. So you have that as part of your toolkit.
Excellent. For anyone who joined in later, Andy has once again put up the slide deck PDF in the chat. So if you would like to download that, you could do that as well. Make a note of what level each of these objectives is written for. And we will wait for another, say, about 30 seconds before I show you at what level each of these objectives are written. All right, let's go ahead and see what levels each of these objectives were written. The first one, which is to decrease citizen complaints by 20% in 1 year, is a level 4 objective because it looks at what's the impact of the program or the project going to be. The second one, which is use problem-solving skills to uncover products and defects, is a level 3 objective because it talks about applying the learnings, using the skills that they would have gained from the particular project or program. Third one, be able to demonstrate the 5 steps to calm an upset customer, is learning, just to make sure that the participants have learned the 5 steps and they're able to demonstrate it. The fourth one, which is rate the facilitator 4 out of 5 on presentation skills, is a reaction. Decrease the amount of time required to develop a proposal. The fifth one is a level 4. Achieve 20% ROI 1 year after implementation of sales incentive system. That's an easy one. Right there, it's level 5 ROI. Seventh one, perceive the content to be relevant for the situation. 4.5 out of 5 is a level 1, which is perception. It's a reaction to the program. The eighth one, decrease security breaches by 25% in 6 months, is a level 4 because that's the impact of the project or program. Ninth one, which is follow the correct sequence after 3 weeks of use, is application. Score an average of 75 or better on new strategy quiz, is learning. And the last 2 are both application. So how many of you did get all the 12 correct?
Pop in the chat or raise your hand. How many of you got them all correct? Okay, 8. So 8, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Anyways, you could tell us how many of those did you get it right? Just put up the number on chat.
Oh, nice. Got 9, 10. Good. Got some almost got them all correct. You're good. Nice job, guys. Okay, good. All right. On number one, yeah. On reaction data. So reaction data, great question. So reaction data or reaction objectives is, what is it you want people to think about it? So what do you want them to think about the solution? So for example, number 4, rate the facilitator 4 out of 5 on presentation skills. Well, what we're hoping minimally acceptable is that you rate the facilitator, that your experience in whatever the program is that requires a facilitator, that you rate that facilitator is good, as defined by 4 out of 5. So it's really just what does the person, that could be a participant in a program or a project, it could be a customer in the lobby of a coffee shop, right? But whoever's involved in that project, what do they think about this experience overall? That's level 1. And level 2 is, what do they know? Based on what you've presented to them, what do they know? Do they know the processes? 3, what are they doing? Are they doing things the way you had hoped they would do them because it was designed to deliver results? And in order to get that impact, they have to do what you want them to do. That would be 3. And then the ultimate end game would be the consequence of their doing what you want them to do would be number 4, level 4. And then ROI is ROI. So hopefully that helps.
This,
right. Very good. Yep.
if I can
think we have a question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
When you say number 1, is it that is the outcome that you want the person at the end? Because it's like when you say on number 4, rate the facilitator 4 out of 5, and then it's like perceive on number 7, it's perceive the content to be relevant. So this is the outcome that you're deciding at the very beginning, that this is what you're looking for. That is what your reaction should be.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
So by definition, great question. By definition, an objective is an intended outcome. So all of these, this is what we intend to see happen. And then when we evaluate, so as you're collecting your data and you're analyzing, you compare those results back to the objectives to see if you're successful. And then the idea too is for those objectives, again, to serve as the core of the design, right? You're designing it to achieve those objectives. So it's really, your objectives are twofold. Here's what we expect to happen. Now let's build this solution to ensure it does. And then evaluation is just go collect data to see if it happened. So that's exactly it.
Thank you.
So so you see how the 3 connect. So we do our work on the front end to align it, come up with a solution, then you set it up with objectives, design around that. And then evaluation is just a matter of collecting data to see if we got it. And then when you're prototyping that solution, this is a brilliant way to make your business case because you have data that's important, not only to those people involved in the experience, but those people funding it. And then they can make a decision. What do we need to improve? Do we carry on with it? Do we expand it? Now, sometimes you may want to forecast the ROI before you ever launch it. And that's what I want to show you real quick now, just that model. Forecasting it isn't much different than actually going through the process of all the way through to ROI and actually running the program and collecting data. Okay, forecasting is just looking at the anticipated, so your objectives, and then having input from your collaborators into what is the likelihood we're going to see improvement. So how much improvement can we actually see, or do we expect to see? And then what's the value and compared to the cost? So I'll show you that model real quick because I know we're about out of time. And when you do forecast, it's good practice to actually do it a lot because you get better at forecasting the more you go. So this is the model. So I showed you the 12-step model to get all the way through to ROI. So again, when you build that prototype, you do your ROI study, that's your best forecast ever because you've gone all the way through the process. But sometimes you need a little more data to say, what's the potential ROI for this solution? So this is the model for a pre-programmed forecast. And here, again, it's not much different than what we've gone through. You develop those reaction objectives. And so you're just working the process. So you look at, okay, what is, how do we expect people to react based on this design, this solution? How much will they learn, and will they learn enough in order to do what we want them to do? How much will they actually do it? So, what is the expectation there? And then how much change are we going to see in the measures that matter as a result of implementing this? So again, this is all forecasting. So objective setting and target setting is a little bit of a forecast too. Okay, here we're going to go through this forecast, but rather than go all the way through the process to collect data to see if we're successful, we're going to base our ROI on a projected change in the measure. And then we just convert the measure to money, anticipate potential intangibles, compared to your monetary benefit to the cost, calculate the ROI. So exactly the same process, but everything's on the front end. You're forecasting it. And just like any design work is collaborative, you're going to get perspectives from multiple people. So these are the different steps that we take. And again, it's just following that model. And then when we're talking about who is involved in it, you're going to get input from different people. You never want to be the lone voice in a forecast, right? Because it's your program, your project. Yeah, we think this program is going to do great, or this project's going to do great. You want to get multiple people involved in the forecast. So we look at anyone who's been involved in a similar project in the past, maybe suppliers and your different designers who are involved. If you had vendors involved, bring them into the conversation. You might look at experts who may be subject matter experts in whatever the solution is or the problem that you're trying to solve. The client, someone who's really going to be decision maker, but has some insight into the likelihood that things will change as a result of the solution. And then, get some people who are going to be involved in the solution, the people who are going to be implementing the steps, get those folks involved. So again, very collaborative. And then when we talk about converting measures to money, so again, we're going to forecast how much change we expect to see in either sales or employee turnover or length of stay in a healthcare organization, whatever your measures are, we're going to convert those to money. And this is just a list of the different ways we can convert measures to money. Typically, when we're doing this work, we work with standard values. So a standard value is a value the organization has already said this is the value of the measure. Sometimes we work with employee time, so time savings. There we use compensation. And then these are just the rest of the list are just other different techniques that we use. Historical costs, we may go to experts. We go to research, some to get go to databases to see if they had values. So just different techniques here. So you're going to get your different people to give you input. You'll identify the measures that you want to improve, convert those to money, so you get the value of those. And then these are the project cost. So when we talk about the denominator of the formula, we talk about fully loaded cost, all the research you've done up front, your design, your development, your implementation, or the expected cost of implementation when you're forecasting, even the cost of evaluating it, we're going to include those costs in that denominator, because what we want is the most accurate, conservative ROI possible, because you can always do better. But we want to make sure that we are uber conservative and that we've captured every single cost that anyone can ask us about. So you get your people to give you the input, you have your measures, you have the value of the measures, and now you have your cost. And all you have to do from there is follow these steps. So again, this is pre-program forecast. You would follow the same steps on the post-program, but just think about before you implement a solution, here's some things, the steps you want to follow. So in this case, this is a customer service process. And what they were trying to do is they wanted to reduce the number of customers who were canceling contracts. So they looked at the value of the contracts being canceled. So it's really the contracts themselves. Their unit of measure. So you're going to focus on that unit of measure. So one additional contract, it says one additional year, but it's the contract year. Right? So it's like telephone contracts. All right. So your cell service. So it's one additional year. So that's what they're trying to reduce, the number of contracts, annual contracts. The value of a contract for this particular service is $121 in profit per year. So for every contract canceled, the organization loses $121 per year. Does that make sense? So those are our inputs. Now, based on the input of their different sources of data, they expect on this solution with the small group that they're testing it on, they expect to see about 14, almost 15 contracts avoided or reduced, right? They're going to reduce the number of cancellations. So they're expecting 14.6. And so this is an average of all the inputs. So 14.6 per month. Everybody following me? So the next question is, what is the annual change in performance? If it's 14.6 per month, what is the projected annual change in performance? And then what is the projected annual monetary benefit? So the total cost savings for that first year, and they're just looking at first year projections. So complete that, and then the solution was just a simple workshop. So the solution only costs $16,300. Calculate your ROI. So again, you've got your sources of data. The measure we're focused on is one contract, annual contract. The value of that contract is $121 per year. That's the profit on the contract that they would lose. Their sources of data tell us we expect to see a reduction in the cancellations of 14.6 per month. If it's 14.6 per month, how much is that per year? How many contracts is that per year? And then what is the total savings to the organization for that year? So what's your numerator? Step 5 is the numerator, and then compare it to the cost. So let's see what you guys come up with real quick. Does anyone come up with an ROI on this? If not, I'll show you. So if it's 14.6, we've got our annual change in performance. So again, that numerator is always annualized. Your ROI is an annual rate of return. That's why we annualize it. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're saying that A is annualized delta P, right? So that's like
Change in
14.6.
performance.
So that
Yes, sir.
14.6 into 12 will make it 175.2. So 175.2 into 121. That's
That's it.
around 21,000, I think so.
That's it. Very good. Very good.
Yeah,
Now let's see what you do.
199.
Now let's see what you do with the ROI. You got step 4 and 5. What's your ROI? Yes. Arthur, yes, it would. To your question in the chat about the investment after the workshop, yes, it is. If it's part of implementation. But here, we're projected that in the cost for this particular solution. So, all right, what did we get? Did you get 30? So everyone get, okay, so did everyone get annual change in performance? 175.2, that's what they're projecting. And again, this is just on this one small group. And then the annual monetary benefit of 21,199. Compare that to the cost, should get 30%. So very good. See how that works? So now we're forecasting. Now remember though, a forecast is that potential success. A target, an objective is what is minimally acceptable. So we don't suggest you use the forecast as your target, because a forecast is a forecast is a forecast, right? Here's the potential success we can see or we can get. Now, what's minimally acceptable? Now, this is a 30%. It's pretty low forecast. A lot of times your forecasts are going to be way off the mark. I mean, huge, but in many cases not. So let's do one more real quick, and then I want to show you one last thing. We're going to call it a day. Okay, here, this was one of their programs are changing culture. So it's kind of a part of a culture change. And so they wanted to know if they implement this, how likely are they going to reduce turnover? So they had their folks come together and say, okay, given this experience, here's how many turnovers we can expect to avoid in 1 year as a result of this solution. They had other things going on, but this one particular solution, they said we can avoid 3 per month as a result of this solution. Now, keep in mind, employee turnover costs a lot of money. So in many organizations, to avoid 3, that is a lot of value. So our unit of measure, so the measure we're concerned with, the impact measure, is regrettable turnover. The cost of turnover, or the value, V for value, the cost of turnover is $21,000. And this was a standard value for the organization and for this particular job. Their forecasted change in performance, they expect to see a reduction in turnover of 3 per month. So what is the annual change in performance? And then what is the annual monetary value that will go into the formula, the numerator of the formula? And then here's your cost, $339.400. But then your cost, what's your ROI? Real quick. See what you guys can do. All right. Anyone want to go for it? I see your response. So, all right. We'll see if anybody else posts in the next 30 seconds. I know we only have about 2 minutes, according to my. Okay, there you go. So over the course of the year, based on their forecast, they expect to reduce turnover of 36 in the year. So they said 3 per month. Multiply that times 12, that's 36 turnovers they expect to see reduced in the year. Each turnover is valued at $21,000. So they expect to save $756,000 by reducing 36 turnovers as a result of this one particular solution. So they're forecasting an ROI of 22%. And again, that's not bad when you compare it. No, it's 122%, sorry, 122%. That's not too bad. Now, when you're comparing it to what we get for a typical investment, so 15, 20% ROI is pretty huge. But we can have those, we can see those big ROIs when we're reducing turnover, because when we lose someone, and again, this was regrettable. There's some people who are sticking around that we probably wish would leave, right? I mean, that's some of those. But there's some people that when they leave on their own, it costs the organization a lot of money. So for turnover projects, and many of the case studies that we have, we see significant ROIs. We've had very high ROIs. But keep in mind, this is just a forecast. So what that's telling us is if we roll out this solution, we have the potential to see 122% ROI. All right, so that's your forecast, your lesson in forecasting. Just remember, when you go to different people and you look at different measures, that they may come out with a different ROI. So we just look at the different measures. This is one that, this is one where they were looking at 2 measures, trying to increase sales and then improve customer service. And they have their different sources of data. Each source said, here's what potential sales I think we will see. The basis for how they came up with that. And then their other measure around the customer service was complaints. So you see in this column, this is the improvement in complaints each source expects to see. Here's the basis for that forecast. And then here they're different ROIs based on the different scenarios. So given the relationship manager's projection for increase in sales and reduction in complaints, here's her potential ROI. The same for the district manager based on their increase in sales, their projection for increase in sales and projection for complaint reduction. Here's their ROI. So you'll get different ROIs for your sources. And then that's when you start looking at them and scoring them based on credibility. So here you see the last 2 have the highest So 5 is the highest score, 1 is the lowest score. You see down here, these are the lowest, here are the highest. In terms of credibility. Now your score, your ROI is anywhere from 12 to 180%. That's pretty big. So what you might then do is just look at those higher score ROIs. And again, it's just giving you a range. A forecast is a forecast. So it's just giving you a range. We may have anywhere from 10 to 12 or 12 to 180% ROI. Okay, narrow it down based on credibility. And then still it may not be an exact, but it's just telling you there's some real potential for this solution. Let's go ahead and pilot it. Let's go ahead and run it out. Again, this is all pre-programmed forecast. So it's a forecast is a forecast is a forecast. We never want to forget those intangible benefits. So these are just some of the typical intangibles that we see. And again, they're important. We're just not converting them to money. And then finally, some guidelines on forecasting. Again, the more you do it, the better you get at it. Anytime you can do a prototype launch and do an actual ROI study on a pilot program, that is your best forecast because you've actually rolled it out. But sometimes you'll have an opportunity to do a pre-programmed forecast. Just remember what it is and what it's not. It is not absolute. It is, here's our potential. So with that, I know we ran over just a sec, just some final words. Something that we like to say here at ROI Institute, when it comes to delivering results or value from money, hope is not a strategy, luck is not a factor, and doing nothing is not an option. Change is inevitable and progress is optional. It's all up to us to get it done. So take a chance, let's prototype, let's do an ROI study on one of your programs or solutions and see if we can't demonstrate the value and make a better business case for design. Here is the link. I'm not sure what that is, but here is the link for your resources. We're giving you, I'm not sure what that noise is. We're giving you 4 chapters out of our innovation book. We'll tell you a little bit more about the process and also the application guide. And then they are going to, Andy and team are posting in the portal, the deck for today, PDF of the deck for today. And if there's anything else you guys need, let us know. We're happy to do it for you. So, okay. Harmaz, Vidya, did that take care of us? Did we get something from it? Short period of time, a lot of content.
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
this was tremendous food for thought. There's a lot to process. I'm sure every designer who stayed back or would need to keep listening to the recording multiple times to gain. But yes, as designers, the typical challenge we face is how do we convince the clients to invest in design, and you've shown us a beautiful approach. I'm sure each one of us would benefit, be it in our consulting practice or be it individually in our organizations. I do hope you have advanced programs where possibly if participants are interested, they could come and learn more about it, because yes, we kept the session for 1.5, about an 80-minute session, which I know is too short to learn and pick your brains. So if there's something, yes, we have shared it. So if anyone is interested to learn more about the methodology, you're free to connect with SDN India or with ROI Institute. I'm sure they will be able to help us. And we're also trying to see if we can have a custom program for people who are a part of the professional service design network. So we'll keep you posted on that. Thank you so much,
yeah.
Patty. Thank you so much, Hamzat, for this wonderful session, enlightening session. And we look forward to inviting you soon again in the future and learning from the both of you.
Okay, thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here. And if you guys need anything, just let us know. And as you get into the materials, certainly let Vidya and Harmaz know if you want to look at any one of the steps. But we'd love to see you in the advanced program. It's Yeah, a lot of content for a short period of time, but hopefully you took away some nuggets that you could use.
Before we sign off, Kulbir has a question. Sorry.
Yeah, there was a question because what Patty said was if there's a difference, there can be a difference in what you projected and what the result might be. And if the variation is quite high, what would you recommend? Do we go back from the beginning and if let's say we projected 20%, but if then it was 60% or other way around, if the deviation is quite high, what you would recommend in that case? Where are we making the mistake?
No, great question. So what the forecast is telling us is we've got the potential to really have a high ROI, right? Here's what has to happen to make that work. Now, knowing that it will not be perfect, what is the minimally acceptable ROI? We have the potential for 160%, but that's if it all works. What's the minimally acceptable? And then set your hurdle rate based on minimally acceptable, right? And design around that. And that's what you'll compare to in the future, right? So you'll look at that. And then you can also compare, well, how does that compare to our forecast? How far off are we? We met the minimum, but how far is that from what we could have done? And then learn from that. And I think that's it's a great question. I think a lot of times when we do forecast, we start to really latch on to the forecast and say, that's the target. That's just the potential. But we know that with potential, there's always going to be some bias there. And we're thinking of best case. Well, let's not set ourselves up for failure, right? That's the best case. What is minimally acceptable? Now, in the example that we gave you, so you had like one had 12%, one had 180. That's pretty big. So if we look at those that are rated a higher level of credibility, so the 4s, they were ranging from 77 to 120. So that's still a pretty big margin. You could say, okay, potential for success anywhere from 77 to 120. All right, let's just say we only get 77% ROI. That's pretty good potential. And use that as the forecast, but then have that conversation. But what's worst case? Because we know it's not all going to go just as planned. And that's when you say, well, maybe let's bring it down to 50 or bring it down to 25. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, like that was the thing. Like if the deviation is quite high, either we are playing very safe or we are playing very aggressive. So you got to just bring it down to the mean and then just work around that. Okay, thank you.
That's work around that, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's, there's something to be said for playing it safe, but then there's something to be said for stretching too, right? Have those stretch goals. You just don't want to have it so far out there that people get frustrated because there's no way you're going to get there. Target setting is a balance between art and science. So it's tough. So, all right, thank you guys so much for staying. Those of you who stayed with us, and again, let me know what we can do. Hope to see you in the future. And we can always break the model down and have smaller sessions around different steps in the process. So Hermaz, thank you for inviting me to join you for this. This was great.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patty. So we really look forward to attending the larger program very soon.
Thank you, Vicky. And you take care of yourself.
I'll do that.
Get rid of that COVID cough.
Yeah, I'm glad that I could join this session. I was just hoping that it's not from the hospital bed.
Right. So, no, we're glad to.
So at least I'm happy that I could, do it live at home, sitting on my bed.
Wonderful. All right. You take care of yourself.
Yeah, okay.
Everyone take care. Hope to see you soon.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
So I thank all the participants on behalf of Service Design Network India. Yes, we got a little extended, but I'm sure there was tremendous learning for each one of you. So look forward to your participation for future events hosted by SDN India. Thank you so much. And thanks to our special guests for making this event very successful. Thank you.